Lesson 86. Obvious. Give me a sentence with the word obvious.
It is obvious from what he says that he is not interested in the job.
Do small children sometimes say they aren't tired when they obviously are?
Yes, small children sometimes say they aren't tired when they obviously are.
Why?
Because they don't want to go to bed, etc.
Ache. Toothache. Stomachache. Earache. Headache. What is an ache?
An ache is a continuous physical pain, such as toothache, headache, stomachache, earache, etc.
What might you get if you ate too much?
I might get stomachache if I ate too much.
Where should you go if you get toothache?
I should go to the dentist's if I get toothache.
What kind of things give you a headache?
The kind of things that give me a headache are noise, too much work, hot weather, etc.
Rule. Confuse. Who was the last person to rule your country?
The king was the last person to rule my country.
Do you understand the rules of football?
Yes, I understand the rules of football.
Do the rules of English grammar sometimes confuse you?
Yes, the rules of English grammar sometimes confuse me.
Do you find computers confusing?
Yes, I find computers confusing.
Would you be confused if I suddenly walked out of the room for no reason and didn't come back?
Yes, I'd be confused if you suddenly walked out of the room for no reason and didn't come back.
Ought. What can we say instead of should?
We can say ought instead of should.
Give me an example, please.
I ought to call my dad because it's his birthday.
When we borrow money, ought we to pay it back as soon as possible?
Yes, when we borrow money, we ought to pay it back as soon as possible.
What ought we to do before crossing the road?
We ought to look both ways before crossing the road.
Do you think children ought to be allowed to go to bed whenever they want?
No, I don't think children ought to be allowed to go to bed whenever they want.
Rough. Smooth. Surface. Seasick. Roughly. Is the surface of this table rough?
No, the surface of this table isn't rough. It's smooth.
When you travel by boat, do you prefer the sea to be rough?
No, when I travel by boat, I don't prefer the sea to be rough. I prefer it to be calm.
Why?
Because a rough sea makes me feel seasick.
If someone tells you that they're feeling rough, what do they mean?
If someone tells me that they're feeling rough, they mean they aren't feeling very well.
Roughly how many people would you say there were in Spain?
I'd say there were roughly 50 million people in Spain.
Do you like rough weather?
No, I don't like rough weather. I prefer calm weather.
Which do you think is the roughest sport one can play?
I think maybe rugby is the roughest sport one can play.
Ground. Level. Underground. Railway. Ground floor. Grounds. What do we usually mean by the word ground?
By the word ground, we usually mean the surface of the land.
Are there any shops in this town built below the level of the ground, or ground level?
Yes, there are some shops in this town built below the level of the ground.
Where?
In the centre of the town.
When a table is not level, what must we do?
When a table is not level, we must put something under one of its legs.
Has this town got an underground railway?
Yes, this town's got an underground railway.
What's on the ground floor of this building?
There's an office on the ground floor of this building.
Where's the biggest football ground in this town?
The biggest football ground in this town is in Wembley.
Are the grounds of some famous old buildings in this country open to the public?
Yes, the grounds of some famous old buildings in this country are open to the public.
Educate. Educated. How can parents start educating their children before they go to school?
Parents can start educating their children before they go to school by teaching them to read and write, etc.
What do we mean by an educated person?
By an educated person, we mean somebody who has continued their studies to a high level.
Making a suggestion. Tell me 4 common ways in which we can make a suggestion, please.
4 common ways in which we can make a suggestion are 1. Shall we wait for him? 2. Let's wait for him. 3. How or what about waiting for him? 4. Why don't we wait for him?
The imperative. Order. How do we make the imperative in English?
We make the imperative in English by using the infinitive without to.
Give me some examples, please.
Give me the book. Do it now. Have a nice day.
How do we make a negative imperative?
We make a negative imperative by putting the word don't before the infinitive.
Give me some examples, please.
Don't give him the book. Don't be late. Don't forget to email me.
Lesson 87. Overeat. Oversleep. Overwork. Overcook. Undercook. Overpay. Underpay. What does it sometimes mean when we put the word over before a verb?
When we put the word over before a verb, it sometimes means to do something excessively.
Give me some examples, please.
Oversleep, overeat, etc.
What might happen if we overate?
If we overate, we might get stomachache.
Have you ever been late for work or school because you've overslept?
Yes, I've been late for work or school because I've overslept.
Are nurses and doctors in busy hospitals often overworked?
Yes, nurses and doctors in busy hospitals are often overworked.
What are the contraries of overcook and overpay?
The contraries of overcook and overpay are undercook and underpay.
What do we mean when we say that somebody is underpaid for the work they do?
When we say that somebody is underpaid for the work they do, we mean they are not paid enough for the work they do.
Charge. Serious. Commit. Battery. Service. What happens to people who are charged by the police with committing serious crimes?
People who are charged by the police with committing serious crimes are first taken to court, and then, if they are found guilty, they are sent to prison.
How would you feel if you were told to charge the enemy in a battle?
If I were told to charge the enemy in a battle, I'd probably feel very afraid.
If you had to be in charge of a big business, what kind of business would you choose?
If I had to be in charge of a big business, I'd choose an entertainment business.
If you were seriously overcharged in a restaurant, would you ask to speak to the manager?
Yes. If I was seriously overcharged in a restaurant, I'd ask to speak to the manager.
Have you ever refused to pay the service charge in a restaurant?
Yes. I've refused to pay the service charge in a restaurant.
What's another use of the word charge?
Another use of the word charge is in charging a battery, for example, in a mobile phone.
How often do you have to recharge your mobile?
I have to recharge my mobile every 2 days.
Clear. As regards. Was the sky clear yesterday?
Yes, the sky was clear yesterday.
Can you make yourself clearly understood when you speak English in everyday situations?
Yes, I can make myself clearly understood when I speak English in everyday situations.
At what time of the day are the streets usually at their clearest as regards traffic?
The streets are usually at their clearest as regards traffic very early in the morning.
Who clears the tables in a restaurant?
The waiters and waitresses clear the tables in a restaurant.
Guest. Host. Hostess. Invite. If you invited me to your house, would you be my guest or my host?
If I invited you to my house, I'd be your host.
If you could play host to 3 famous guests, which 3 famous people would you choose?
If I could play host to 3 famous guests, I'd choose Mahatma Gandhi, Albert Einstein, and Marilyn Monroe.
Ridden. What are the 3 forms of ride?
The 3 forms of ride are ride, rode, ridden.
Have you ever ridden a horse?
Yes, I've ridden a horse.
Have you ever ridden a bicycle at night without lights?
No, I've never ridden a bicycle at night without lights.
Severe. If you were a judge, on what kind of criminals would you be most severe?
If I were a judge, the kind of criminals I'd be most severe on would be murderers.
Do you get very severe winters in your country?
Yes, we get very severe winters in my country.
Blow. What do people say they see when they receive a blow on the head?
People say they see stars when they receive a blow on the head.
Respect. What kind of people do you respect most?
The kind of people I respect most are doctors and scientists.
Company. Employ. Employer. Employee. If you had your own company, would you employ someone simply because they were a friend?
Yes, if I had my own company, I'd employ someone simply because they were a friend.
What do we employ to cut bread?
We employ a knife to cut bread.
What do we call a person who employs somebody to work for them?
We call a person who employs somebody to work for them an employer.
And what do we call the person who works for them?
We call the person who works for them an employee.
Machine. Accidentally. Are there a lot of machines in a factory?
Yes, there are a lot of machines in a factory.
What do we use a cash machine for?
We use a cash machine for taking money out of the bank quickly and easily.
What could happen if you accidentally put a red sock in a washing machine with white clothes?
If I accidentally put a red sock in a washing machine with white clothes, I could get pink clothes.
Flown. What are the 3 forms of fly?
The 3 forms of fly are fly, flew, flown.
Have you ever flown in a plane?
Yes, I've flown in a plane.
Draw. Drawing. Curtain. Are you good at drawing pictures?
No, I'm not good at drawing pictures.
What do we mean by a rough drawing?
By a rough drawing, we mean a very simple drawing.
What's the easiest way to draw out cash?
The easiest way to draw out cash is to use a bank card in a cash machine.
What does to draw the curtains mean?
To draw the curtains means to pull them open or closed.